Hi there, it's Keith and it's Christmas Eve. And so here at the Evangelical Free Church, we're just having a few thoughts from John's Gospel. And I'm going to be looking at a few verses from John chapter 1, verses 1 to 5 and 14 to 18. I've always had a love of books. And sometimes, particularly if you're reading a book that's full of information, the thing to do is to get acquainted with it by reading the introduction and definitely paying attention to the index. Well, in John's Gospel, chapter 1, verses 1 to 18, we effectively have the index of John's Gospel. He covers all the things that will be coming up concerning the nature of Jesus. And so what does he tell us? Well, first of all, he sets the scene. Verse 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. And he makes it very clear that Jesus is also associated with God, not just sort of vaguely. He is God because he created. Verse 3, through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. And then he tells us in this first section, he is the source of all spiritual life. Verses 4 and 5, in him was life, and that life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it. So he may be the source of all spiritual life and light. There's just one big problem. We don't get it. We don't understand it. So, what does John do next? Well, he sums up Jesus' ministry. He picks up the theme of Jesus, the Word, God's message to us, being one with God. And he does that in verse 14. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. That can actually read the one and only Son. So it picks up, doesn't it, on this not just close relationship, but the whole idea of God become man. But here's the key thing. He lived among us. It's quite interesting. It actually uses a phrase which Jews would have been aware of and understood. He tabernacled with us. Now, what's so significant about that? Well, when the Jews were in the wilderness, the tabernacle, which was in the center of their camp, represented the place of God. And so it's saying, just like that time, God is among his people. And here's the wonderful thing. What does that mean? Well, it means we can get to know who he is. Verse 18, no one has ever seen God, but God, the one and only, who's at the Father's side, has made him known. Jesus shows us what God is like. And he does that in several ways. He does it through his teaching. It talks about how we have received the fullness of grace and how we've received one blessing after another. When Jesus taught, it was the very words of God speaking to his people. So that's one way. And the second thing is this. Jesus satisfies all God's requirements. In verse 17 it says, for the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. You see, back in those times, in Moses' times, in the times of the Exodus, the law was the way that God spoke to his people. It's just one big problem. God being a perfect God had a perfect law. And the big problem is we are not perfect. But here's the thing, God realizes that. So grace and truth came in God in person through Jesus Christ. Grace, something we don't deserve, is extended to us. And here's the thing, it's not watered down, it is the pure truth of God. Jesus Christ has not just made God known, he's made an amazing offer of grace known to us. We don't deserve to be pardoned by God. We don't deserve to be reconciled to God. But here's a wonderful thing, we can be. How is that possible? Well, in an early Christian letter to the Galatian church, Paul writes this: Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse for us, for it is written, cursed is everyone who is hung on a tree. Interesting enough, there's an obscure law about a body being hung over on a tree by execution overnight. And that brought a curse upon the land. And what does Paul say? Jesus, when he hung on the cross, became a curse for us. He took the punishment of our failure to keep God's law. And what does that mean? Well, verse 14 of Galatians 3. He redeemed us. Good word, means to buy us, bought us. He bought us in order that the blessings given to Abraham might come to the Gentiles through Christ Jesus, so that by faith we might receive the promise of the Spirit. Everything that was promised to God's people through Abraham is extended to us. And actually, that's the real meaning of Christmas. Christ brings God's promise, God's grace, God's truth. Do you notice nothing gets diluted down? God's truth remains the same, but here's the thing. Grace compensates for a law we can never actually keep. We got some booklets on the front of the railings. There's one particular called The Gift. We'd love you to take one if you're passing at any time. Have a really good Christmas if I don't catch up with you before then. Take care. Bye.